Welcome into HQ, and it is time for Pete Prisco's Power Rankings, presented by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Make every moment more. I'm Jacqueline D'Agostino. The pleasure with Katie Mox, Kyle Long, Pete Prisco, and Pete. I mean, we're only 2 weeks in, man, but there's been some major shakeups when it comes to the Power Rankings.
You know what I always say 2 weeks in? Jack knows this, our producer. Nobody's any damn good, okay? They all stink right now.
Except one team.
One team is good. Well, okay.
Yeah.
They're on the top of your power rankings. That doesn't necessarily mean they're good. The Chiefs, that's where the top spot belongs to. And Joe Burrow and Patrick Mahomes, Kyle, it is always really, really fun to watch. It always comes down to a field goal, doesn't it?
Yeah, throughout the record book when you're playing against these teams, when you're the Chiefs playing the Bengals, it's always going to be close. And obviously the first 2 weeks for the Chiefs have been really close. But top of the list, 2-0, and they got the best player on the planet. So it makes sense to me, Pete.
By the way, the Bengals would love to throw out the records right now if they
Yeah,
could.
they would.
I mean,
Yeah, they would.
0-2 again.
I know. They start slow, don't they? Let's get a look at the power rankings, though. The Bills coming in at #2. We have the Texans at 3. The Bucks and Baker Mayfield at 4. The Vikings at 5. Biggest riser, that is #6, the Saints, because after week 1, we said Derek Carr looks like an MVP. It's easy to do that against the Panthers, but against the Cowboys in Jerry World, that's a whole other conversation. We mentioned the Vikings in the top 5 there, and the Niners, after losing to the Vikings, dropping all the way to #8.
Yeah, when you look at Tampa Bay, I know a lot of people are going to say they're too high. We had that conversation this morning, but I started them high. I thought they were going to be a good team before the season. I think they're a really good team. We haven't seen the best of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They go on the road and limit the Lions, who are supposed to be a high-flying offense in their building. And they did a great job of defense, minus Antoine Winfield, minus Kalaja Kancey, minus Vita Vea when he went out of the game.
Huge players for them.
Corner was out. They were out. Players were out all over the place, and they still were able to limit them. That's a big tell for them. That's a big tell for me. I think that team is the best team in the division, even though the Saints are right there. And the Saints have done some really good things as well.
Yeah, and you know, it all comes down to that quarterback. We talked about it this morning. I love Baker Mayfield, sometimes a little bit too much. But when you got a guy like that, you can go on the road. You know, you can be roster to roster comparison. You don't have to be as good of a roster. When you got Baker, you got a chance. And he got sacked 5 times by one guy, but at the end of the day, you find a way to win when you're the Buccaneers. That's what happens when you got a leader like that.
I love Baker Mayfield as well because he's my fantasy quarterback, and he's been putting up 25, 30 points for my fantasy team through 2 weeks, but I digress. Let's get into the power rankings more. We're talking about the Vikings. Katie, I apologize. You got to close your ears for just a minute.
I owe Pete an apology, though, because I found him in the newsroom last week, and I was like, you're wrong. The Niners are going to win, so my tail is between my legs here.
And they're one of the biggest risers here.
Yeah, and I picked them to win that game in large part because the 49ers have always had problems in Minnesota. I thought what happened would happen. I thought Brian Flores, who's a great defensive coordinator, would throw so many different looks at the 49ers, and they did. Plus, they were coming off a tough Monday nighter, and you're out on the road. That's always hard turnaround for me in the NFL with the schedule. I love what I've seen from the Vikings. And Sam Darnold, look, I had my doubts about Sam Darnold. I really did. He hasn't shown this type of play at all in his career. He's looked really good so far. I'm impressed with the Vikings. And if you're the 49ers, you have to have major concerns about this game.
Yeah, Geno Smith got his groove back, but then you guys talk about Sam Darnold, too. I'm thinking about 2 guys that got their groove back, and I said Geno Smith. But really, it's Sam Darnold getting his groove back with Kevin O'Connell, and I was thinking about the renaissance for a guy like Geno Smith in Seattle. You get your confidence back. These people didn't call you. He didn't call them back. And Sam Darnold, he ain't calling nobody back either. Neither was Justin Jefferson running for 97 yards, backed up in the shadow of their own goalpost. But look, I was disappointed in this Niners team. Usually the run game, the defense travels. They weren't able to do it with as much efficiency as they were early on in the season. I have some concerns there. Obviously, Christian McCaffrey's going to be out for the continuation for a few more weeks. Ayuk, getting him back in the roster. Deebo Samuel. You've got guys out there, but for Brock Purdy going against that Zimmer defense, there's a lot to look at. Pre-snap, the picture changes post-snap, and then a lot is asked of Brock Purdy.
And by the way, Deebo's going to be out for a couple weeks now, maybe too, with a calf injury.
Yeah,
they're hurting the Niners.
They are hurting. And to your point, Pete, the 49ers have not beat the Vikings in Minnesota, I think, since the early 90s. So it has been a very, very long time. But, Pete, you gave me a meh at the top of the show, but the biggest riser in your power rankings is this Saints team at #6. All right, they beat the Panthers, dropped 47 of them. Maybe not that impressive. 44 on Dallas in Dallas was impressive. You got Derek Carr out there giving the little Michael Jackson. Kamara looks like he's been drinking out of the fountain of youth. Thoughts on this team?
Yeah, and they've been impressive. I mean, 15 possessions for the first team offense, 15 scores. I mean, that's incredible. You don't see that happen in the NFL at all. And I was worried about their offensive line. They've held up. They've done a nice job. The defense is really good. They have corners who match up. Now, having said all that, and I'm going to give them props, but I'm going to take them down a notch, too. They did play an exhibition game in week 1, right? That's an exhibition game against Carolina. And then when they went out on the road, they played the Cowboys, and Clint Kubiak, the offensive coordinator, used to work for Mike Zimmer, knows him very well, knows their defense very well, and seemed to be one step ahead of him. So let's slow it down a little bit, because there's always the Derek Carr factor. He's playing great. Don't get me wrong. He's playing great football, but I get concerned in big moments, and they haven't been threatened at all this season.
Yeah, they haven't been threatened at all. It's because of the success of their run game. You pointed out their offensive line and the success that they've had. You know, the tackles with Penning and Fuaga, the right tackle, the left tackle, respectively. They've done a really good job running the football. It sets them up to throw the football down the field. And obviously, you got a guy like Kamara. You can play that in-between game where you're throwing it just past the line of scrimmage. Next thing you know, he's taking it 40 yards. I think it's awesome. But what remains to be seen is how will this New Orleans Saints team play if they don't get an immediate lead in a football game? When Derek Carr's got to drop back 40 times and throw the football, that's where we'll know more about the Saints team. I like where you have them at 6. If you had them in the top 5, it would have been an overreaction, in my opinion. You're in a good spot.
Okay, now I can sleep well tonight.
My son.
He likes where they're at.
Okay, so you like the Saints at 6. Want to know your take on the Steelers entering the top 10. We were talking about good defenses, and this one is no joke, as expected, right? Allowing 1 touchdown in the last 2 games. Justin Fields is playing serviceable enough there at the quarterback position, but Pete, how sustainable is that for this team in the AFC North, which, I mean, if I had had any team in the AFC North starting 2-0, it certainly wouldn't have been the Steelers team coming into the season.
No, and when you play that style of football, you have to hope everything goes your way. Because if something doesn't, you're done. You know, there are teams with great quarterbacks and a good passing game, they can come out from underneath their mistakes. When you're a team that relies so heavily on great defense and a running game and Fields not to make mistakes, if there is one, that's a problem. So I don't know how sustainable it is. And their defense has looked really good, but think about who they played the first 2 weeks. They played Kirk Cousins when he played in the pistol and because he couldn't move, and they weren't very good on offense that day, and Bo Nix, a rookie quarterback who was terrible. And so I think you got to tempered a little. We'll know a little bit more about them. They play the Chargers this week. That could be a physical battle between 2 physical teams.
We've seen all the good things that Justin Fields can do, but conversely, we've seen the things that has him in the basement in a lot of our opinions. You know what I'm saying? The middle of the field is essentially a vacuum. There's no football being played in the middle of the field for Justin Fields in the passing game. But with the gifts that he has physically, this offense is able to do just enough. And like you said about the defense, they're going to keep him in every game. It's going to be ugly football. It's going to be ugly wins, but a win is a win. Nobody knows that more than Mike Tomlin. I trust their head coach. Justin Fields, obviously a mismatch on the edge. And look, they found out how to get Justin Fields the football into George Pickens' hands, which is a big key for this offense.
And I know this conversation has been had many a time. So based off of where we're at in week 2, you're shaking your head. Is it Justin Fields?
Yes.
Or is it Russell?
Yes, it's Justin Fields.
If he's healthy, if Russ is healthy.
Okay, if Justin Fields plays this week and bombs, then you might make the decision to go back to Russell Wilson if he's healthy. If he continues to play okay and they win games, I don't see how you take him out. It was a QB competition to begin with. It was one where a lot of people thought Fields should have been the guy in the first place. So I don't think you take him out of it.
Yeah, early on in his career, Russell Wilson would have been a guy where I say you have to get him back in there. Defenses have to prepare for the scramble drill, all that stuff. Nowadays, Russell Wilson, he's about my age. He moves about as well as I do. You get Justin Fields back there. The defense not only prepping for handoffs, prepping for passes, but Justin Fields' ability to keep it himself, get outside. He's a dude that can run to throw, not just run to run. So the secondary has to be on their P's and Q's as well. It's a really dynamic threat.
2 quick things. The Steelers traditionally don't have guys lose jobs by injury, so that's something to keep an eye on. And number 2, Steeler fans, get off of my back, please. Okay, I said before the season they were the worst team in the division. I might be wrong.
Oh, okay. Well,
well, at least you're admitting it. You always do, though.
Baby steps for you. That's good, you know?
That's good. I made
really
progress.
Good. I'm proud of
Hey,
you.
clap for me today.
I'm proud of Pete.
Yeah, I made progress.
All right, let's look at the NFC East. The Eagles were the favorite to win the division heading into the season. They are down 10 spots in your rankings at number 18 after that collapse on Monday Night Football. Pete, is it the same old Eagles from last year? They win by the skin of their teeth, as we saw in week 1, and then they kind of collapse and lose these games that they should have.
You're giving up 7 yards per carry on the ground. Oof. That is demoralizing. That just dominates a football game. You don't get the possessions you need to get pushed around. You know, we saw the Packers do it. They averaged 7.8. This last night they averaged 6.8, I think it was, on the ground. You're giving up way too many running yards, rushing yards, and when you do that, it really wears down a defense, and then it also takes the offense off the field. And I think they have to figure that out. If they don't figure that out, it's going to be a season-long problem. They're not going to be a very good team because they're a rhythm offense. They want to get the ball and move, go down the field, run the ball. You run Barkley, you throw the ball. They can't do that if you don't have the football. So I think that's a problem for them.
Yeah, it's a great point you bring up about stopping the run. Obviously, the numbers indicate that they are just not doing that, not stopping the run, but it's the way in which they're doing it and getting outside, not being able to set edges on the defensive front. You've got guys like Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter. You should be blowing up the middle of that play. You should be blowing up the play before it starts. You get an explosive guy like Jalen, he should beat the edges of these guards. You get Jordan Davis, he should be absolutely taking up double teams and eating them for lunch. They're not getting that done, and at the end of the day, it's not good enough for this Philly defense.
What about Kirk in prime time? Are you excited to see? I mean, that final drive was great.
I think he's now 4-12 in prime time, so kudos to him. And if Nick Sirianni hadn't done the dumbest thing I've ever seen for a coach in a long time, he wouldn't have had the opportunity to go do what he did.
I was so pissed when they didn't run that football.
Oh, my gosh. You run it twice, and the worst-case scenario is they get the ball back with 50 seconds at the 8-yard line. It was dumb.
I will say, as someone who has the under on the Eagles win total, I was happy to see it.
Yes.
I was happy to see it.
All right. Kyle, Pete, we certainly appreciate it going through your power rankings as we do every week. Kyle, what's coming up on Pushing the Pile?
Yeah, Pushing the Pile. We got Leger Douzable in there tomorrow. Going to get a deep dive into some of the action for this week. We're going to review last week. And obviously, if you missed it today, Pete Prisco's Power Rankings. We gave some awards and had a good time.